President and CEO of PACT, and I'm here to welcome you back to this third episode of the 2021 Forum Conference Series, presented by Fairmount Partners and Anexinet. Once again, I'd like to recognize and thank all our sponsors, many of whom you'll meet throughout the various segments of this series. In this next hour, we'll meet the final three companies in our Forum demo pit, featuring our Forum Committee's selection of top early-stage companies, providing the cutting-edge innovation that enables digital disruption. And we'll hear from a lineup of speakers on the third of our Forum themes, data management.
Hello, I'm Kalyan Konda, President at Cigniti Technologies. I've spent my career in software testing and quality engineering, doing various roles such as technical services, global delivery management, solution engineering, and business development. Cigniti is the #1 quality engineering services company in North America. As we continue to explore the theme of this year's Forum Conference, the enterprise data journey, we will focus today on the topic that is perhaps not the most exciting step in the journey, but is the most essential one: data management. How can we respond as the volume and velocity of data are growing in ways that tax the limits of legacy infrastructure and data models? Our next speaker and later our panelists will discuss how both data scientists and enterprises are addressing this question.
Hi, I'm Todd Homa. I'm a consultant in our data practice here at EPAM. I'm excited to have the opportunity here to have a lightning talk on data ops about how we got here and what's next. I think that this is a pretty current topic that people are discussing and very much related to the theme of the PACT Forum, which is Enterprise Data Journey. I hope you enjoy the talk. So to start, I'll provide a quick introduction of myself and EPAM. We'll get into some data governance over time, my perspective of how things have changed from, let's say, the 60s until now. How that resulted in data debt and how data ops is being used as a mechanism to pay down that debt, and then where I think things are going in the future. If you aren't familiar with EPAM, here's a little bit about us. We're a global digital platform engineering and product development company. Our teams are located all over the world. Our headquarters are in Newtown, Pennsylvania, which is about 12 miles from my house. I had never heard of EPAM until they reached out to me about 5.5 years ago, and that's because most of our growth comes through referrals, and our reputation speaks for itself. So a little bit about me. I've been working with data my entire career. I started in the mid-90s. I've been working for consulting firms ever since. I love data, and I've really enjoyed the journey, which I'll talk about on the next slide. It started as with relational database management systems, and I've progressed all the way through to current platforms, building large data platforms on the cloud. So I have a full perspective of how things started, and I think I have an idea of where things may be going. So this is a rather simplistic view of how I see how things have evolved over time. I'm highlighting here how the amount of governance or lack of governance has evolved over time, along with some trends in the industry at the time. So data modeling started in the 60s, 70s with COD. And it was really about structuring data to process it more efficiently. And over time, that data became more structured into relational database management systems. And then in the 2000s is when there was the peak of what I would call the OLAP, so the EPAM versus Kimball-based modeling to support analytics. The process for creating those analytical products back then was rather cumbersome. Usually involved having development teams for both ETL for the analytics, and then on top of that you had your database managers, you had your data governance crew, which probably included data stewards who were responsible for business metadata, and then you had a data modeling team that ultimately was responsible for the conceptual and or logical physical model. And there was a lot of effort around trying to harmonize all those structures into what we call enterprise data models at the time. This led to some pretty long development cycles. I mean, to build a large data warehouse at least took 9 months plus. And oftentimes when we delivered either the warehouse or data model or the product at the time, it would end up being not meeting the current requirements for the business. The business had moved on, and what was built was not so relevant anymore. This was addressed a little bit with the introduction of agile development and some incremental kind of deployments or development of data marts, but it really didn't solve the problem. We were still looking at 3-month cycles, maybe a little bit less, in order to build out analytics for the business. So given that, the business was always looking for ways to manage data on their own and essentially bypass the IT structure because there was so much governance and it was so process heavy. They need to get things done and get things done quickly. So this is where a lot of silos were built, under the desk type of solutions. That was accelerated by the introduction of some newer tools. So the NoSQL tools, Hadoop tooling allowed for the business to quickly ingest data pretty easily and then process it on their own. It really started to pick up, I would say, in around 2012, 13 or so, when enterprises started to adopt the tech company technology around Hadoop. It was appealing because essentially it could ingest large volumes of data. You didn't have to be selective about what you ingested. You could ingest any type of data, so it didn't have to have a schema. And this led to what I would consider chaos because there was almost no governance around what you ingested, who owned it, how it was used, how you governed access to it, because it was so easy. You could process large amounts of data very easily. You didn't necessarily have to be a programmer in order to manipulate the data. There was a lot of scripting tools that could be used. You didn't have to align with an enterprise data model. You could bypass most of the IT governance structure. And this led to what was colloquially known as the data swamp, which is basically just a large amount of data with no structure. So anything that could come in, and who owned it, who knows. So what I'm seeing now is that people are starting to figure out ways that they can apply some governance to these platforms to ultimately make the data more useful and more relevant. So the evolution of those platforms has essentially left us with a lot of data debt. So data debt stems naturally from the way companies conduct business, especially when the companies are run as loosely connected portfolios. So if you have different functional areas, different groups producing their own things, each line of business wants to control their own data and have rapid access to their own data. So they start making decisions about data management and data product development on their own, and thus creating silos. In addition, people are often moving across many of the different data engagements. So there's a lot of turnover for the data system owners, and you lose control over your data assets. And as I mentioned, what would be indicative of data debt are these duplicate data and pipelines. So maybe you have the same KPI produced by many different functional areas using slightly different logic. You have data silos that are being created by different business areas that maybe don't align with the enterprise. Typically, your data quality goes down. You either have too much security if you have a highly governed enterprise resource, or too little, or maybe perhaps somebody has ingested something under the desk and it's not being governed or secured properly. It's difficult for people to find data because they don't know where it is, who owns it, and how to get access to it. You have multiple versions of the truth because multiple people have their own perspective of a given entity. The pipelines may not have the structure around them from an orchestration and workflow, logging and monitoring perspective. It makes it difficult to reproduce results, so the data lineage is fragile, and you don't have a data owner. This is all the result of these fractured kind of development that you see was accelerated through some of the more modern technologies. So all that data debt is, I think, how data ops is starting to get some momentum. Why do you need it? Well, because there's an enormous amount of data that's coming in, and it's going to keep coming. Business wants faster turnaround time on their analytics, and the business also wants more efficiencies in the processing of data and the production of data and analytical products. So this is where data ops comes in. It's the process and the principles that allow you to start to pay down that data debt. So data ops is really about applying DevOps principles to your data operations. So leveraging agile software engineering best practices, integrating with your customer, and delivering business value, collaboration and communication, continuous integration and end-to-end process improvement, doing analytics and data products as code and maintaining them as you would any software engineering artifact, maintaining multiple environments for testing and building integrated tool chains. It's really about reuse and automation and shortening the cycle of delivery. It also involves full stack monitoring along with data-driven improvement, both for your data pipelines and also for your use of your analytical products. So the federated data platform in the marketplace, in our opinion, allows for the distribution and appropriate amount of governance based on enterprise assets versus maybe locally controlled assets. This allows functional areas or different business groups to build their own platform following enterprise standards, but maintaining localized control. Following those enterprise standards and integrating with, let's say, best practices around security in the marketplace allows all of that data to be pulled together into one area. So the marketplace essentially becomes the data platform portal, allowing access to everybody's data products. So it should minimize and limit the amount of duplicate data sets, but it still allows for the fact that businesses can maintain local governance of their data. This is a difficult thing to do, but I think that this is where the industry is going. I think the next frontier is going to be around the semantic layer. So now that people have the ability to ingest large amounts of data, and as we're starting to pay down our data debt with data ops, the quality of the data assets are being improved, and they're also becoming findable because they're being governed through the marketplace, and they have the appropriate amount of metadata and the appropriate amount of security, and they know who to speak to get access to that data. And the tooling allows us to provision the data, and provision the storage, and provision the compute to analyze it. The problem is, how do you integrate it? You still have to go back typically to an IT team to figure out how you're going to integrate these data sets. So in my opinion, people are going to start to look towards self-service integration, which is the next frontier. And I think the only way to do that is to provide some context from a semantic layer perspective on each of the data sources. With that context, it'll allow you to understand how you can integrate the data. And there's no tooling out there right now that solves this problem. It's still a very manual process. It involves a lot of curation. But I think tooling's going to start to evolve in this area, and I think this is the next frontier. Thank you for your time. I hope you enjoyed the lightning talk. If you want more information, please go to some of the links provided here. We have some white papers that were published on data ops that provide a little bit more in-depth information about our thoughts along data ops. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Thank you for your time.
Hello, my name is Todd Pittman, and I am proud to serve as the CEO of Anexinet. On behalf of the entire team at Anexinet, we are proud to be joining PHORUM as a presenting sponsor this year. For over 20 years, Anexinet has been helping clients solve business problems through our delivery of innovative services, solutions, and products. At Anexinet, we believe that by improving customer experiences and employee engagement, leveraging analytics and data, and modernizing infrastructure, we can help our clients more effectively and efficiently drive top-line revenue growth while ensuring cost structures are optimized. As a presenting sponsor for this year's PHORUM conference, I am thrilled to present this next session, a discussion among established enterprise and emerging company executives on the challenges of managing the volume, velocity, and richness of data. Moderated by Joe Vidal of HP Enterprise, an esteemed Anexinet partner.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I'd like to thank everybody for joining us today on a webinar focused on data management, the not so fun part of IT. My name is Joe Vidal, and I'm the Master Technologist in the Office of the CTO at Hewlett-Packard Enterprise. I've been in the IT business for over 30 years. We're not going to get into me because I've got three great subject matter experts that are going to help me talk about data management, the issues, and how to work your way around them. And the first one is Sushma Akunuru, and Sushma with Independence Blue Cross. Would you give us just a second, to introduce yourself?
Thanks, Joe. Sure. My name is Sushma Akunuru. I'm the VP of Business Application Development, reporting into the CIO. I have more than 17 years experience in the financial services industry, but I'm excited to now be part of healthcare. and I'm glad to share my perspectives on data.
Fantastic, Sushma. Thanks. And thanks again for joining us today. The second one we have today is Kevin Bair with Snowflake. Kevin, you want to take a few moments to introduce yourself, please?
Sure. Hey, Joe. Kevin Bair, Snowflake Computing. I'm the director for sales engineering for some of our largest customers on the East Coast. So just real quick, Snowflake, as you can see, the data cloud. So hopefully we're going to get to talk a little bit about that today.
Oh, yeah. We're going to talk about that. That's fantastic. Thanks. And lastly, but certainly not least, and he'll be the first one to talk about some questions here, is Mark Porter, the CTO with MongoDB. Good morning, Mark. You take a few seconds to introduce yourself, please. Thank you, sir.
Hi, I'm the CTO of MongoDB. I joined about a year ago. I've been in databases for 30 years. I'm really excited about them. And I'm excited about what's coming and happening with data. So thanks for having me here today.
Oh, you got it. And listen, I have the first couple questions I have are actually for you around data management, data gravity, and database performance. So the first one is, how is MongoDB addressing the data management challenges in software development?
So it's a great question. It's divided into multiple parts. So first off, MongoDB is actually architected from the ground up to be a distributed system, which distinguishes itself from most traditional databases today, which are single system monoliths. And so that's the first thing, it just scales out. The second thing is the document model. The document model allows you to put data in any format you want. You can modify it over time. You can enforce the schema if you'd like, just like in a relational database if you'd like. And by doing those two things, we let you store as much data as you want, spread it out, have it scalable. But the key, one of the most important things, the secret sauce, is the way that we integrate for developers. Our one customer that we focus on is developers, and we have native language interfaces. So instead of multiple pages of SQL to insert something or to pull something out, it's a single statement in your native language to get or persist a data structure. And so all those things together mean that we are the best database to work with for data. And in fact, MongoDB has been rated the best database wanted by developers 4 years straight on Stack Overflow.
So are you telling me that it's an open natural language style database, query language?
Well, so we have
similar?
we have both our own APIs, which lets you talk, and we have our own query language called MQL, and we'll actually let you use SQL if you'd like. Though that's, we think that's only for some use cases, but you can use SQL, you can use MQL, or you can use your native language interface.
And absolutely incredible. That's fantastic. Okay, so now the second question is a little bit of a tricky one, and it may be one that applies to everybody. And here it says, what does the evolution of data look like with regard to the current offerings in databases, data warehouses, et cetera, especially in light of the move to a software or database as a service mindset that's so prevalent these days?
So the first thing is, one of my jobs was I was at Oracle, and we ran these huge enterprise databases. And then I ran the Amazon Relational Database Service and Aurora. And those were huge scaled managed services. I'm a huge fan of taking the toil away from any DBA or any developer in managing their data. And by the way, other people on this call are too. That's not unique to MongoDB. At the same time, what we're seeing is that because data and applications are at the core of every company now that is innovating, those databases can't go down. It used to be that systems of insight, systems of record, and systems of engagement all had different SLAs. Well, now the SLA is when one of those systems is down, the CEO is involved.
That's right.
And if it's down too long, the board gets involved. And so we've had to change the way, from an engineering point of view, we think about those systems and how they talk about each other. It's not the evolution of data, it's the evolution of the requirements on that data.
I love it. I love it. And truly 5 nines of availability is no longer good enough, right? 4 is definitely not, and 3 is right out, right?
Well, so the way we design our systems is there is no known reason for them to go down, which is very different than 4 nines or 5 nines. That doesn't mean that sometimes, we and others don't have outages, but there's no known reason for our system.
No, and the beautiful thing is that as a former database designer and developer myself, and I've been in the database business in and around it for many, many years. I've been designing hardware that helps your MongoDB database stay up even more like 5 nines, 6 nines, and even full 100% uptime availability. So there's all kinds of great ways we can do that. And we love partnering with you guys and delivering that extreme high availability solution. So that brings me to the last question. And that is, if the end destination is the public cloud, what are the considerations companies need to be looking for to modernize their infrastructure to account for that public cloud residency?
So first, I don't want to leave behind all the people that need or want to stay on premises for regulatory reasons,
Nor do I, by the way.
security reasons, for culture reasons. And there's a lot of them, and they need to run great databases too. So we have both products. I think a lot of companies are trying to bridge that hybrid thing. But to get to your point about public cloud, we believe that it's not about public clouds as much as it's about public clouds, plural.
Yes.
You can run a cluster across Azure, GCP, and AWS on MongoDB right now. We're the only provider that lets you do that. We actually find more and more companies through acquisitions, they need to share data between GCP Analytics and Azure Synapse and AWS, some S3 estate they have. And so when we help people migrate to the public cloud, which we do a lot, we help them focus on culture, because that's important. If people don't want to be on this journey and they're scared for their jobs, that's not good. Second, we help them focus on costs. Lift and shift is a mistake. And it used to be all the rage, but now it's a mistake. If you lift and shift, you're going to double your costs and you're going to end up with something broken in the cloud. You need to transform your security to take advantage of the marvelous security options on the cloud. You need to transform your provisioning to take care of the marvelous elasticity available on the cloud. And so all those things together mean that you have to be brave enough as a CTO, and I talk to more than one CTO a day. That's my promise to my boss, is that you actually are going to work with your CFO, you're going to work with your board, and you're going to help your whole company transform, not just lift and shift your estate.
That's a great way to put it. And by the way, you bring up such a great point. It's about hybrid cloud, multiple cloud, or hybrid multi-cloud. And so as you're then joining into multiple clouds, this really brings me naturally right into our second topic, Mark. So thank you for beautifully, talking about the issues there. So let me kind of focus now in a little bit more on Sushma's area of expertise, which is data security, privacy, and data interoperability. So as we're talking about, as Mark mentioned, the interoperability requirements of being able to span multiple clouds. So Sushma, in your areas of expertise around business applications and security with Independence Blue Cross, what do you see as the biggest issues around data security? And in your opinion, is there such heightened emphasis on security and privacy measures around data?
Yeah, thanks, Joe, for the question. If I were to say what is a CIO's biggest nightmare today, right, I think there would be a unanimous vote that the scare of a breach or a hack or a loss of or exposure of our members or our clients' data and privacy, I think would be on the top of the list. So just think about just in the last 2 years, and if I say 2020 and 2021, and we're not even into the second quarter yet, we've seen thousands of breaches and hacks and scams, and just makes us, all the more the need for security controls and measures all around data. Members, PHI, PII, which is personally identifiable information, as well as personal health information is very, very important. At least in Independence Blue Cross, it is the #1 topic that we discuss week after week in our risk committee. So there's absolutely no excuse around not having, to Mark's point, any controls around known issues. Now, hackers are getting smarter. This will never end completely. There's always going to be an evolution of that space. But it's so much more important that we emphasize the need for, whether it's on-prem, hybrid, and the move to cloud is inevitable. So how do we think about partnering with data providers, right? Amazon, MongoDB, you name it. But how do we, from a data provider as well as data consumer, right in the middle are these data managers who have to start thinking about the next generation controls around securing our member information, our clients' information.
Absolutely. And you bring up the point of PCI, PII, HIPAA compliance, data locality requirements, and of course, data security compliance. So what are your top storage challenges and the choices that enterprise have to make increasingly in the years to come? in those
Right.
areas?
Yeah, I think when we thought about data storage, we looked at being able to procure and save data in a place versus the access. And to your point about the 3 V's, Joe, I would in fact extend it. There's volume, there's variety, and there's velocity.
That's right.
And this is something that we've been talking for more than a decade now. But here's the 4th V, and this is not me coining it. I read it somewhere, which is, I think, invaluable to think about. The 4th V being value. What is the value of all that data that we want to thoroughly manage in a cost-effective way? We can scale the data, but well, if your business is not able to draw value and insights out of the data, that's where we sort of lead into analytics and data sciences. When technologies sort of converge and data storage just purely doesn't remain as a storage path versus it now enables that scalability across data engineering, data governance, and data analytics, that's when I think I would vote for that, and I would sign up for a technology like that.
Well, Sushma, I tell you, you're preaching the choir here. As a former storage guy and certainly a current storage guy at Hewlett Packard Enterprise, we realize no one storage solution fits all, right? Because there are some solutions that, are fairly low requirements as far as volume or velocity, or maybe they just need to be backed up. But then there are some that absolutely need to be available full-time, 100% availability. To Mark's point, databases that can't go down, solutions that have to be available, and now interoperability. So in the data interoperability landscape, the role of data managers is achieving sustainable, obviously, development goals around software-defined and SDG. So what's your take on that for the greater good there?
Yeah, so it's interesting how, as I mentioned, I come from financial services, highly regulated. I know the need for, and I guess to some extent, it's a known fact that in the financial sector, we've come a long way in really making data available, real time, across channels, across partners. But in the healthcare space, it's interesting that we are at the crossroads of CMS interoperability. And for those who are not overly familiar with that, it's really a requirement by CMS to make data available to our members, right? Traditionally, I think we've suffered these silos.
And still secure it and keep it private, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. So if you think about, I'm a member, I visit a doctor from my provider, that information for me to be able to share with the lab, or the lab information to be shared with the new doctor since I relocated, basic things like these have not had standards for a long time. So as I sort of started digging and learning more about it, it's interesting to learn that the United Nations is also running a World Data Forum with several countries participating and driving some sustainable development goals around data interoperability. Now, think about what does that mean when we start sharing data with Russia, China, and the globalization of data sharing and interoperability poses its own sort of threats and risks. And from an American company's point of view, I am very curious and interested to see the evolution of that landscape. And I thought that's an interesting topic, probably in itself, that we should sit down and have another session to dig deeper.
Well, you're absolutely right, Sushma. I tell you, it really gets interesting when you start talking about blockchain and how people are trying to push that out. But then the security issues, obviously, while it's built in, it's the implementation that becomes the real issue there. And I wish we could go into more detail there, but unfortunately, we need to keep on moving. And I love your perspective, and thank you. Having a perspective both in financial services and in healthcare, I believe you're probably seeing a lot of similarities there now, especially when it comes to data security, data sovereignty, data locality.
Right.
So and speaking of data locality, the third topic today is around data gravity and planning and a move to a cloudy world. And that brings us to our third subject matter expert, Kevin Bair. Kevin, obviously 25 years experience in the big data space. So Kevin, what's your perspective as director of sales at Snowflake? It's got to offer you some unique perspectives on your clients' issues and opportunities. So how is Snowflake helping customers with their journey to the cloud?
Yeah, it's a great question. We deal with some of the largest both healthcare and financial customers in the world, right? And I think the thing that's interesting, that the two things that we always have to tackle are, as you mentioned, data gravity, right? Some of these customers have petabytes and petabytes of data sitting on premise, and they want to go to the cloud, but just trying to figure out how to do that. I mean, I think AWS a couple of years ago put on stage a semi-truck, right? Basically that they were going to back up and help you to literally move your data to the cloud. Not sure that's theoretically the best way to do that anymore, but it does talk to the problem that people have of how do I unhook, right, all of this infrastructure, all of this data, and even if I want to, how do I get it into the cloud? So we work with customers on those strategies. And the other piece, and you guys have been dancing all around it, right, is security and governance. Right? When you're moving from on-premise into the cloud, you have to change your mindset, right? All of the rules that were written for on-premise are not all of the same rules and policies and procedures that you're going to want to implement up in the cloud, right? And so we are always working with customers. It's almost a partnership, right? You can't just come in and say, this is the way we do it. We like to partner with our customers, figuring out what their policies are, how to kind of work with them and evolve their policies as we, move their data into the cloud.
Well, you're absolutely right. And I tell you what, the ways that we're all doing it, right, from each of the three of you here today, along with the NextNet and Hewlett Packard Enterprise, of course, we're all helping everybody actually understand how to manage their data, whether it's in that private cloud environment or the public cloud environment. But I know that you guys have seen some really interesting things that your customers are doing with data in general in Snowflake. So could you share with us a couple of those things?
Yeah, a couple things. You guys, my panelists here have talked about it. The multi-cloud, right? That is a big deal.
It's not just one or two. It's multiple,
exactly.
And they're hybrid.
Run across all of at least the major cloud platforms. So we see that a lot. The other thing I talk to customers about is, the time value of data, right? It's not just good enough to do batch jobs overnight in order to be able to get your analytics done the next day. Right. We're talking to customers about how fast can you move data, right? The time value of data from the time it hits the source to the time you want to start to analyze it. How do you shrink those timelines, right? And so that is, I think, very important. And it goes to the value statement that Sushma was talking about, right? The value isn't what happened yesterday. The value is what happened a minute ago. And can I do the analytics that fast in order to, in this volume world, right?
And normalizing it at the same time, right?
Yeah, exactly right. So
yeah, you're absolutely right. Okay, so I know we only have a couple minutes left. So without making any future commitments, what trends do you see continuing developing or even maybe ending related to data today?
Yeah, I'll say trends that are becoming more important. And it's really around, for me, that I'm seeing, talking with my customers, it's about metadata and governance, right? If you can't manage and govern, everybody wants to kind of get to this data democratization, right? For everybody to be able to see the data that they need and they want. But the only way to do that kind of appropriately in this data rich world is to put the right controls and governance around it, right? So I see a lot of things happening in that space in the future, and I'm excited where Snowflake's going to go with that.
I tell you what, we all are, and there's so much happening right now. I think there's never been a more exciting time to be in the business of IT and dealing with it. Whether that it is IT, whether that it is data, whether that it is security, data locality, whatever it might be. There's so much there. So I want to thank all three of you for joining us today and helping talk just about, we're really just scratching the surface on the issues around data management, data security, data availability, and dealing with the multiple areas where our data resides today. So thanks for joining us today on today's webinar around data management and the inherent problems surrounding data gravity and data security. My name is Joe Vidal. Thank you very much.
Osage Venture Partners is a venture capital firm located right here in Philadelphia that focuses on early stage B2B software companies. We're proud sponsors of this year's Forum Demo Pit, featuring a dynamic lineup of promising early stage companies. Since 2012, the Forum Demo Pit has featured close to 100 companies. Past winners have gone on to raise more than $65 million in capital, and 1/3 of the honorees have successfully completed exits to strategic acquirers. Today, you will see 3 more of our 9 competing companies. Our judges will review the pitches and announce the best in show at the final session of the Forum Conference this Thursday, April 22nd. But before we get to today's Demo Pit companies, let's catch up with Topbox, a past Demo Pit finalist.
One of the things that we learned along the way was, if you're working with a good set of attorneys, a good set of accountants, folks who have done this many, many, many times, you'll get good advice. I'd say we started our business out and we used somebody who we knew as opposed to somebody that spent years and years and their whole practice around the startup community. And I think as a result, we ended up starting out a little slower than we probably could have. It is worth the money to work with a law firm like Akunuru, to work with an accounting firm that knows the startup ecosystem. It seems expensive up front, but it will save you a lot of time, aggravation during the fundraising process. It will save you a lot of money at the end of the day, just starting out with the right foundation.
Hello, my name is Farah Ahmad, and I'm the Chief Commercial Officer at Strategikon Pharma, the developer of Clinical Maestro. Clinical Maestro is a modern SaaS cloud-based tool for the automation of business processes supporting any clinical trial. We've seen an increase in the level of R&D outsourcing in our industry. In 2016, it was at 43%. That has grown to over 65% in 2020. This has compounded an already existing problem. The pain around manually managing and planning for these trials that are already very complex, using static data tools and aged point solutions such as Excel, email, and Word. We've seen that there's even greater complexity now with the pandemic because of decentralized trial models, home health logistics, and remote approaches. Additionally, the current tools does not account for the transparency that provider-sponsor relationships need to be successful today. We have estimated the total available market at roughly $2 billion. At a conservative estimate of just 5% penetration, we anticipate revenues of over $95 million in license fees. Strategikon was founded in 2017, born out of love and frustration for clinical business operations. Through seed, angel, and private investment, we were able to launch the first commercial grade version of Clinical Maestro in January of 2019, and have since been fortunate enough to continue expanding during the challenging time of the pandemic. Clinical Maestro is a broad-based tool consisting of two different editions, a sponsor edition and a provider edition. Both are designed to mimic the natural life cycle of a clinical trial, from a planning and budgeting phase to an outsourcing phase to an accrual and forecasting and governance tool. It's also meant to interact with one another in a seamless and unique way. Really, the gold behind Clinical Maestro is the data trove. That's the business intelligence engine that fuels our predictions of fair market value. With all the proposal data that flows through our system between pharma, sponsors, and providers, there's a lot of sensitive information being shared. Clinical trial designs, cost data, country data, rates, and operational strategies and resourcing approaches are all flowing through this tool. With our data sharing model, we are centralizing and de-identifying that data and using AI to maintain the currency and the accuracy of our estimates. This new generation of tools is remarkable because it can 10x the speed at which you go through these processes, particularly budgeting. We've also been able to define, and our mission is to occupy the vertical of clinical business operations. We have a very clear buyer. It's either the head of clinical operations, or in larger organizations, it's the head of R&D procurement. We have many doors that we can go through, and the modular structure gives us a tactical advantage from a sales perspective. Additionally, once your data is in Clinical Maestro, study plans, budgets, very difficult to walk away from that. So it's a highly sticky product. A couple of client success stories that we'd like to share. One from a European customer was able to save about 20% of their budget and a lot of efficiencies using Clinical Maestro. Another client, a large pharma, was able to reduce the time it took to generate a clinical study budget from 3.5 weeks using the normal path to just 12 minutes using Clinical Maestro. That's quite remarkable. So finally, I hope I've been able to convince you that Clinical Maestro and Strategikon can bring the data harmony that our industry so very needs to continue its path forward. Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Julie Bula, CFO and co-founder of Sweft. Sweft is SaaS software that helps retailers of all sizes quickly and profitably scale their online businesses. We do this by automating processes, connecting teams, and reducing reliance on manual entry Excel spreadsheets. This is an example of what is called a product detail page on a website. It includes items known as digital assets. These are the images, item description, and additional information that a retailer provides to customers to help them decide if this is the item that they wish to purchase. It takes over 100 steps to create the digital assets necessary to populate the product detail page for each item on a retailer's website. We have spoken with retailers of all sizes in all different industries who have confirmed that this is an accurate representation of the teams and communication that is necessary to create the digital assets to launch their products. Keep in mind that at each one of these points, there is the potential for additional costs from operational inefficiencies, as well as lost sales and margin from product launch delays. We have surveyed dozens of retailers from the smallest up to and including Walmart, and have determined that 94% of them are using manual entry, error-prone Excel spreadsheets to manage the workflow for the digital asset creation of their products. This results in lost sales, lost margin, and lost profit from a combination of operational inefficiencies, incorrect or incomplete information being given to customers, and product launch delays. Sweft is the first automated end-to-end solution for the entire workflow of digital asset creation from product selection to product launch. Sweft utilizes a centralized product database that easily integrates with a client's existing systems to provide a 360-degree view of product data with a single point of entry and immediate visibility to all. A clear and simple dashboard provides access to workspaces, priority alerts by both team and role, messages, and KPIs. A click-through of a priority alert, like received not activated, will bring a user to a product grid that intentionally looks and feels like Excel to promote easy and fast user adoption. Sweft also includes a variety of document templates that can be easily updated with specified data and then printed or saved to PDF to further streamline business operations. The end results of using Sweft are increased sales, margin, and profit, which we conservatively estimate to be in excess of 20% from the following KPIs. My two co-founders, Michael Robinson, Rajana Sharma, and I are uniquely qualified to be the first team to bring an automated end-to-end solution for the workflow management of digital asset creation to the retail industry. Combined, we have over 70 years of retail experience ourselves, including partnering for almost 10 years to grow Anthropologie.com from 0 to over $200 million. Now, more than ever, retailers need technology that helps them quickly and profitably scale their online businesses to be competitive in the post-COVID digital-first marketplace. Built by retailers for retailers, Sweft is the solution that they need to take their online businesses to the next level. Thank you. I look forward to answering your questions.
Hi there, my name is Ed Zabar. I'm the founder and CEO of Verif-y, and I'm here to tell you today a little bit more about digital identity, compliance, and privacy that we provide. I'm going to talk a little bit about who we are, what we do, some of our products and services, what we've done so far, and a little bit about investments as well. So what is Verif-y? Verif-y is a technology company that uses some of the more cutting-edge pieces of technology like blockchain, artificial intelligence, machine learning, to provide a way for organizations and individuals to trust their counterparts when interacting online, but also in some cases in person. We do that by providing various types of services that include identity screening, employment, credential verifications, licenses, and much more. And we provide this to organizations around the world, mainly focusing on financial services and healthcare. Verif-y is also a self-sovereign identity company, which in essence means the ability to allow organizations to transition data to individuals and for the users to own their data and decide what to do with it. We have three different groups of products. One is the identity screening solutions, which I mentioned, which allows organizations to onboard individuals or interact with them online. The second one is an unparalleled privacy compliance solution, which allows organizations to really maintain compliance with all the new privacy regulations around the world. And the last one is Background Checks 2.0, which is a better way to conduct background checks with more compliance, with more tools. And all of this comes in a package. It's very modular and allows organizations to implement this and integrate it much better and faster. So starting with identity screening, we provide Know Your Customer solution and identity screening solutions to various types of organizations, which they provide to their users when they want to identify them before transacting or before opening bank accounts or before signing up as individuals. We do that for businesses as well, Know Your Business, and there are other ancillary services such as sanction screens and accredited investor screens and so forth. We do this in a way that provides organizations with an ease of use and ease of implementation. So we don't just provide the solution at once. It's a staged approach, which allows large and small organizations to really take the value of the system over time and increase their compliance as they move forward. Our Background Check 2.0 solution includes a lot of different components that are similar to existing background checks, but some that are very different, like the fact that users can own and manage their own background checks, like the fact that we do deep social analysis and provide identity screenings and all the other parts of identity integrated into background checks. Regarding timeline, so we've been able to secure two very large organizations as clients, in addition to our smaller ones, just in the past several months. One is a Fortune 500 financial services company, one is a government organization, and we're in the process of integrating both of those. We also have a very strong pipeline that's representing in the future of what we're going to do, of integrating other large organizations, such as financial institutions, insurance companies, healthcare organizations, and so forth, going forward. We're currently looking at our A round, which is going to be $5 million. It might be more. We have some significant interest already coming in. We've raised $3 million so far. For myself, as the first investor, is a material amount, and then other investors as well, including local companies and investment groups in Philadelphia and Pennsylvania. And the use of proceeds will be mostly for technology, sales and marketing, and some back-end support of our systems. And it's over time going to reduce the cost for us because as we use more of those technologies, our dependence on individuals will go down over time. And that's all I had. I thank you very much for your time. Thank you for listening, and I'm looking forward to having meaningful conversations about it. Thank you.
Thanks to this year's amazing lineup of Demo Pit companies. Don't forget to join us live on April 22nd at 10:30 a.m., where we'll announce this year's PHORUM Demo Pit Best in Show.
Thank you to our Demo Pit sponsors, Bentley Systems and Osage Partners, and to all of our Demo Pit companies. We'll announce the Demo Pit Best in Show during our final forum episode on April 22nd. We also have our last variation on our theme of the enterprise data journey to explore during that session. All broadcasts will launch live at 10:30 a.m. Eastern and will be available to view on demand afterwards via our forum community platform. Remember to visit the forum website, forumphilly.com, for information on how to access that platform. This concludes our broadcast for today, and now I invite you to join us along with some of our Demo Pit companies and sponsors in our virtual networking lounge. You can find a link to that site in the live chat or in the agenda tab of the forum community platform. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you at 10:30 a.m. on April 22nd for our final forum episode.